Hey folks, hope you guys are having a great Wednesday. Welcome to the show. I think we're running as the Newpub show. Why not the right stream? Well, it's the same show. But I've done basically a whole year, a little bit less I think, talking specifically about writing and writing techniques. So we need to transition to doing something new for a while, right? We've done like 50 lectures on writing and writing techniques. There's always more to talk about. But I kind of like to limit myself because I don't want to keep saying the same things that I've said before. That gets a little boring for me. And, it's kind of part of the way content cycles work. A lot of content makers will basically repeat things that they've said on previous years and previous videos because the new thing is what gets promoted. So, you just got to deal with that. But, we've done a whole year of writing. So it's time to move on to other stuff. We'll talk a little bit about business to start things off and then kind of leave it up to y'all. Maybe we could do some live writing. We could play a game. I enjoyed doing the game streams. So it's just sort of a change of pace. So as far as business goes, if you're on my mailing list or you're you're on the Substack. Actually, I didn't mail this out, so I need to put it out on my mailing list. You should be on the mailing list, dvspress.com/list. You get a free book for that. But anyway, I simplified most of my extra money stuff. So the Patreon, basically, if you want to be part of the subscription, you got to be on Patreon. You get a free book every month, and you get an extra book when you join, The Keys to Prolific Creativity, my creativity manual that everybody likes. So you get that, and you get a different free book every month, so that's cool. So that provides a lot of value there. Plus, you get copies of all the live writes I do. You have access to the Discord, so you can ask me questions. Chances are I'll answer questions elsewhere, too. That's just the way that I am. I'm pretty generous when it comes to wanting to help people out if they have questions about this business or about writing or about any kind of idea that they have. Sometimes you just need somebody who's been around a while to like bounce an idea off your head. Most of the time your ideas are cool and your ideas are good. The only time that I caution people with ideas is usually if people are like swinging for the fences as their first like go around. Like, I'm going to write this 10 million word epic. It's like, you should start with some short stories. That's a good place to start. Start with a shorter novel. Start with a short novel. Build some chops before you try writing Malazan Book of the Fallen. Right? Or Discworld. Or something like that. So that's, where I push it back. I have this idea of starting like a new social media company. That's big, dude. Good luck. Right? Something like that. So it's okay to have big ideas, but it's good to bounce them off people. I'm always happy to provide that to people. I don't really like to charge money because I like to see what people are doing, and I like to encourage people and help them out however I can with whatever they need. So I've simplified that down. I think there's just 3 tiers left. It's a $7 tier, the Patrician tier, which gets you a free book and free book every month, plus all the other stuff, live write stuff. The lower tier, the equestrian tier, gets you The Keys to Prolific Creativity, plus all copies of all the live writes. So you are getting extra content, like you're getting copies of the book that I write live on the air. And then, of course, if you don't feel like being part of that membership, but you still want to know what's up with that book, you can just watch the live stream, and I write it live. So you can... It's not the most efficient way to read a book, but you can watch it being created. I never would have done that stream if people had not been asking me to do that, by the way. Like, for years, people are like, you should write a book live on stream. I'm like, would anybody watch that? And the only reason I really thought now might be a good time is like, we have AI writing, and it's not good, but, we're at a point where now lots of people are doubting creators. Like, did this creator actually do this, or is this fake? And that's good in a lot of different ways that I can go deeper into that are not limited merely to AI. But it's an opportunity to say like, no, this is done live. You can see the music is done live. This is not a computer playing music right now, okay? This is me playing live. You can watch the video. I'll link the video for you right now. So this is a live performance by me, solo. You can watch me write the book live. I'll draw the map for the next book live at some point here too. I don't know if I'll do that today. I need to set some stuff up to really do it. Well. I don't think AI writing is kind of good now at all. I see it and I think it's bad. It's impressive for a computer. Now, I wrote an article on my Substack the other day, like, did AI actually improve anything? And the answer is no, it didn't. So you have to think, did AI make writing better? No. So it didn't make writing, did it make literature better? No. Did it make the book market better? No. It made it objectively worse in every single way that it could be worse. It's worse for writers, it's worse for readers, it's worse for everyone, right? It's made everything worse. It's made art worse, right? It has not improved art. It has made it cheaper to make art. It's made it easier to like make book covers, for instance. But has it made book covers better? No. It's made it easier to make a minimum level book cover, which is what I do for a lot of my books, because they're not going to be bestsellers. They're passion projects in a lot of cases, or they're weird, like Al Shafalda. There's no reason to spend $500 on a cover for that kind of book, because no one's going to want that story. It's a weird story compared to the regular market. Okay, so it's good. I could do a Photoshop cover for that. So if we go back and let's go back before there was AI. Nothing wrong with the Photoshop covers. They look cheap, but they are cheap. And sometimes you need cheap because the book is not going to be a bestseller, and you know that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with writing a book or recording an album that's more esoteric than a regular book or a regular album, right? Imagine telling Dark Throne that they need to like spend more money on production so that they sound like Yes or something. They'd be like, it's retarded. There's not that many people listening to Dark Throne. Why would we do that? So yeah, it's it's just a thing, right? But because it's present and because it's coherent enough, you're going to get a lot of people that accuse other writers of using AI, like if they're putting out too many books. Now, before, like this was a thing with Mark Lawrence, I think. He was putting out lots of, like 12 books a year. People are like, no writer can do that. Well, actually they can, right? Walter B. Gibson, who created The Shadow, used to write at a very crazy pace, but Mark Lawrence was doing it by plagiarizing, and I don't think he was actually plagiarizing. What I think he was doing was hiring ghostwriters in like the Philippines or wherever he could do it cheaply. He was hiring ghostwriters to schlock books together, and they copy pasted stuff to like speed up their process, and figured no one would actually find that out because they just wouldn't, right? Like they wouldn't be searching the books for plagiarism. It's not something that's on a lot of people's radar. But with AI now, that's the thing. So we'll do it live, and that's fun. Anyway, I simplified the tiers, so you still get, there's benefits all the way across, or you can just give me $1. You can tip me still on Ko-Fi or on Subscribestar. Like if you want me to make a video, like someone tipped me to make Zardoz, and that's great. Like I wouldn't probably make a video on Zardoz simply because very few people would watch it, and I think that video got about 1,000 views. Which is a lot compared to some other videos I do that get like 100 views, right? Like I'm lucky if I get 100 views on music, right? But it's a lot less than what I get if I made a video that's like, here's a movie that sucks, that's current. It gets thousands and thousands of views, right? Like if you can see a bad movie opening weekend and make a review about how bad it is, that's like guaranteed views. People love watching negative reviews, and I hate doing them after a while. It's just it's kind of soul sucking. Like I don't want to see trash. I could predict now pretty certainly like which movies are going to suck. There's a lot of little tell signs even in a preview that it's going to let you know that a movie sucks, right? We knew that Dune was going to suck simply because of the casting, and the casting was by far the worst part of the movie, but it went with all the other things, the bad dialogue, the butchering of the original story, right? That's why we knew Dune was going to suck. We could have looked at it and said, oh, it's got this wayfish twink as Paul Atreides. It's probably going to suck. That was a good enough leader for most things. If you can find something in the preview that's like, oh, that looks bad, the movie's probably gonna be bad. I can't think of too many exceptions. The only exception I could think of was the original Avengers movie, which I thought looked like schlock garbage, and I saw it, and it was schlock garbage. But it really entertained me for 2 hours, and I ended up enjoying it. I did not expect to enjoy Avengers at all, but I did end up enjoying it. I don't love superhero movies, so that's a thing, right? Anytime I see a preview for a superhero movie, I'm like, that looks stupid, and I watch it, and I'm like, it's well-executed garbage. Falls in one of those 3 categories, right? Well-executed garbage, special effects spectacle that's poorly written, which is most Hollywood movies, or just like overt political propaganda. That's what it is, right? Zimamaru says, I watched a video about Tolkien's problem with Narnia being fantastical creatures from different regions being brought together for no real reason. I haven't seen that. Like Santa and centaurs being in the same universe. He also didn't like the centaurs. Natures are non-existent in the story, like satyrs are supposed to be sex crazed but aren't in the book. What to do? I think Lewis really just enjoyed bringing all those things together. He did it in the space trilogy too. So if you haven't read like Out of the Silent Planet, what's the Venus one? Paralandra, and then the third one is probably the most famous, and I think for good reason. It's called what's the third one called? That Hideous Strength. So people are like, is it 1984? Are we living in 1984, or are we living in Brave New World? No, we're living in That Hideous Strength. Yeah. I can like schlock garbage. It's all about expectations and what you want out of something, to me. Like, audience expectations play a real role in how you interpret and react to a movie or any piece of art. That's a very postmodern perspective. Like, there's going to be people who are kind of in the right-wing churning whirlpool who will reject and react violently whenever you say that, like, there's no objective beauty standard. Right? Beauty is not an objective quality. It's a quality. It's not a quantity. Right? You don't measure beauty. Right? A Voyage to Venus and Paralandra. Paralandra's how I knew it. By the way, you can read the audiobooks, I think, for free still on Amazon. And they're read by a guy who does a bunch of the voices in Oblivion, in the Oblivion game. I can't remember his name right now, but he's like, he does a bunch of different voices in Oblivion. He's like Vincent Valtieri. He does a bunch of voices. So, really good audiobook. I listened to it while I was renovating my garage last year. Definitely great. I should do some videos on the Space Trilogy because I think Narnia gets so much focus when it comes to C.S. Lewis, and we're missing out on like a really deep, adult-oriented approach to things that is great science fiction. I think in the old tradition, it's like serious science fiction, but also in the pre-war tradition. If that makes any sense, it's very good. That Hideous Strength is a dystopian novel that concludes it off because each one takes place on a different planet. The first one takes place on Mars. Mars is a planet that's sort of dying and decaying and sort of at the end of its life. But it's remained pure. It hasn't fallen to the devil. And the creatures and the people and the angels there are in the world and running the world in a way that is more in line with God's designs. You have Paralandra, which is a repetition of Adam and Eve. It's a new earth with a new Adam and a new Eve. It's a young version of it. And this Adam and Eve and Paralandra are tempted with the fall. And so the whole construction of Paralandra, besides its fantastical golden seas and things like that, is really about the contest of good and evil kind of brought into these two men. One who's trying to do the will of God and doesn't know if he'll have the strength to do it, and one who has basically given himself over to the devil by not believing in him, if that makes any sense. He actually calls the devil onto himself and then becomes possessed by a demon. So it's a repetition of the temptation of the fall with a better ending, right? So finally we get to Earth, which is the middle child, and that's the one where the fall happened, where man succumbed to temptation and became influenced by original sin. That one's funny because you have Merlin in it. Merlin shows up. There's a repetition of the Tower of Babel, which short circuits the design of the bureaucracy. And so in that you can see that Lewis is talking about the Tower of Babel is not just a tower. The Tower of Babel is government. And it's the government that influences and controls everything. It's the government that sort of hideously bends everyone into one monolithic sameness without any variation. And so the solution to that is a repetition of the Tower of Babel. Not only that, but the animals also participate in the overthrowing of the evil government. So it is nature, and it is ancient wisdom, and it is a repetition of Babel. So there's that's the solution to the bureaucracy, is to split it up. People can no longer communicate with each other. They can't hear and understand each other. The bureaucracy and its hideous strength is destroyed. And it's also full of lots of other inversions. You have this female policewoman taking on these masculine traits. You have like rebellions against the feminine, rebellions against the masculine. You have rebellions against death itself. They've preserved a death. They've preserved a head in a jar, like Futurama style. And they listen to it, and they're like, "Oh, we've overcome death," but they haven't really, because it's just like a demon-possessed object. It's really cool. So definitely that hideous strength is one of the more disturbing of them. And if you look at it like Out of the Silent Planet is an adventure novel. Paralandra is more of a religious allegory in a contest of moral wills, and That Hideous Strength is a dystopian novel. So each one fits in 3 different genres, even though they're in one series. And that's a really interesting thing. I don't think a lot of writers would try that today if they weren't me, right? Like, I would do something like that intentionally because I think it's cool. You know, have 3 different genres and 3 different books in one series. But Lewis did it, and he did it really, really well. He did adventure science fiction, almost Flash Gordon style. He did, more moral, something that would be like in a Star Trek episode for Paralandra. And then he did something that's more dystopian, like 1984 for That Hideous Strength. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. There are objective standards, but there's also individual taste. So what is the objective standard? The only way to achieve an objective standard for a quality like beauty is to evoke some sort of platonic ideal, which we can't really realize here. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I think the fact that we can talk about beauty indicates that there is something called beauty. But in our fallen world and in our objective reality of many variances and many experiences and a variety of context that's constantly shifting based on our perspective, to say that we can all agree on what is, say, for instance, the most beautiful object, I think that's going to be an impossibility. I think you can point towards beauty, but we can't fully realize it, not in this life. Okay, not in this life. Once we get to heaven and we are unconstrained by the mundane world, and this is not to be Gnostic, but rather to recognize we've lost the likeness of God. We retain the image, we've lost the likeness. And in losing the likeness of God, we're unable to fully understand the good via our own senses. That's my opinion with that. And so when it comes to something like beauty, there's no beauty unit. Now, I can come out with a parade of beautiful girls right now, and you guys can all disagree about which one's the most beautiful, which really indicates that you're not dealing with an objective standard. You're dealing with a standard that's subjective. Doesn't mean that there's no standard or it's impossible to come to general consensus about some general set of beauty standards. It just means that each of you are going to evaluate that differently. You're going to assign different. You're going to be like, this girl's a 9, this girl's a 10. I could pull out a girl and a picture of a girl and someone will be like, that girl is a 10. And then another guy's going to be like, her boobs are too small, she's an 8. Or her boobs are fake, automatic 7. I don't like them. I could tell that they're fake and it's ugly to me. I can't knock you for saying that, right? That's this thing about individual taste, but it's not so much like what is taste, right? What is food? What does the taste of food point to? The taste of food as an aesthetic experience is hard to qualify outside of its, words like it's salty or, this tastes good. Why does food taste good? Is it so that we eat good, nutritious things? Well, that's not the case, or cookies wouldn't taste good. Rather, cookies, have sugar, which is rare, which makes us want to eat it because it's rare in nature, even though it's not rare for us in the modern world, right? Lots of things that go into that. Does this cookie taste better than that cookie? That's why you have a panel of judges and not one. If aesthetic experiences were objective, you wouldn't need more than one judge, and you wouldn't need judges. You wouldn't need somebody who's an expert and has experienced many different aesthetic things to judge the aesthetics of something. So yeah, there's no objective beauty that we can really grasp here. We can, at best, point to the objective beauty that's really beyond our own realm and our own understanding. This stuff, by the way, it's in my books. I have all this, this is a major underpinning of Water of Awakening and Needle Ash and all of these books, all of the Eternal Dream books, is that the mundane world, the world that is a product of ourselves as much as it's a product of God. We manipulate it, we make houses, we make objects. This just takes it one step further so that people are actively involved in creation in ways that they don't quite understand. That's sort of the deep lore of that book. And so what you are and what you're meant to be in a perfect sense may be different than what you visibly are now. And again, that's not to be Gnostic, because we live in a fallen state. Let's say if somebody is born without an eye, right? Are they going to have no eyes in heaven? So people ask this question, and the answer is no, they'll have both eyes, because the cause of that missing eye, that birth defect maybe, or that injury, could have been an injury caused by another person, right? The cause of that defect through the fall of sin and the influence of original sin in the world will be removed, and therefore those hurts will be healed. It doesn't mean we'll all look the same, right? We'll probably be able to perceive each other's beauty correctly in heaven without the cloudiness of losing the likeness of God that disturbs our ability to understand what aesthetics are and what they mean. So I take a much more spiritual approach to aesthetics. It can seem sort of postmodern because I just recognize that we're not going to agree on beauty, and there's no beauty unit. We have to arrive at that through different means. But aesthetics are not just the way things look. They point to something. And they point to the good. So something that's really beautiful points to God. That's why churches should be beautiful. And it's why churches have been beautiful. It's not just to waste money or something. Like that's what Judas would say. Ooh, this money we spent on the Sistine Chapel, we could have given that to the poor. That's a Judas thing. But to honor God and to point toward him. Beautiful things point toward him. And in the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant's adorned with many beautiful images and made out of beautiful substances and overlaid with gold. It's a beautiful thing. And the beauty points to heaven because heaven is beautiful. It's not merely an object. Rather, the object and the concept comes from somewhere. The Space Trilogy was pretty good. I have to read them again sometimes. Screwtape Letters and his other works too. Screwtape Letters is good. It's good and entertaining. The Space Trilogy is really cool. I was very impressed with the prose especially. Beauty Unit sounds like a fantastic element in a dystopian setting. Yeah, that would be a good one. Because then it's their standard, and that standard can just be up to them. This would be a total 1984 thing. You only have 2 beauty units, and it's like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. Because the real beauty unit is you have to have a shaved head and be fat and have piercings all in your face. That's how you get 9 beauty units, right? You get a beauty unit for each piercing outside of your ears. You get a beauty unit for shaving your head. You get a beauty unit for letting your arm hair grow out, for coloring, putting tattoos on your face, right? Bring out the beautiful women and let us judge. Elbows 2 point, 6.5. Yeah, it's you can find these threads. We used to see them on like 4chan decades ago at this point. You'd be like, all right, rate this girl. Someone would be like, 8. It's like, why is she an 8? Dude, look at her elbow. That elbow, the slope of this elbow is unesthetic. 2 points, minus 2 points for that. You know? Incidentally, this is also kind of circling back to AI art. People who call themselves AI artists or like prompt engineers, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This was the dumbest sell ever, like 2 years ago. It was like, you can buy my prompts. It's like the whole point of a large language model is that it understands English. That you can just communicate to it with language and it'll do the task that you want it to do. That's the point. So if a large language model can't do that, we're just learning another programming language at that point. It's like mystically conjuring up a programming language to operate Mid-Journey AI. No, the whole point is to use English with that. Anyway, the people who call themselves AI artists are often very ill-equipped to evaluate the shortcomings of AI art. This is the I don't know what to call this. It's kind of a Dunning-Kruger thing, but not exactly. Dunning-Kruger effect, right? In order to recognize how bad AI art is, you have to have enough training in art and like art appreciation at least to understand the flaws in it. So if you have that training, then you don't need to be, it's kind of a catch-22, right? You don't need to be an AI artist. You can just make the art. Now, I say that there's people like Noah Bradley that's like, I'll use Midjourney to do the sketch layer, to like sketch out a desert, and then I'll paint over it and change everything. But it just kind of starts with the composition to get that out of the way. It like cuts, an hour or two out of his process to do like Midjourney stuff. But you're still painting over Midjourney at that point. Like you're not really composing the whole thing yourself. But you could, like Noah Bradley could do the desert landscape behind the figures by himself and not use Midjourney to sketch that. He's a competent enough, and he would know what needs to be changed about it and what you need to change when you paint it. Whereas like an untrained artist would just be like, well, it looks great. And then they put it out and everyone would be like, this is AI garbage. Like, how could you tell? It's like, how could you not tell? All these things are wrong. The lighting's wrong, blah, 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 right? And it produces this weird thing where people will defend the quality of AI art. I think Shadiversity he basically got cornered into doing this. It's his own fault, I guess, but it's like having to defend bad AI art because he can't recognize why it's not good. He can't see the flaws in it because he hasn't really developed his own artistic talent enough to do that. Whereas for someone who's more trained, and I'm not a great artist, but like I've been trained in art from a young age. My mom is an artist. So she taught me how to draw. And, so I do have some background in art. I have enough to recognize a lot of the problems with AI art. And the good artists I know, it's like instant. It's like, oh man, look at what they did with here. The eyes are weird and this. And then they're like, oh dude, you can instantly see it. There's a bunch of details that AI art will like continually get wrong. And it hasn't actually gotten better at them over the past year at all. So it's still pretty easy to recognize most AI art. Yes, the fingers are getting better. There's the right number of fingers, but the fingers all look wrong. There's so many details that go into the human face, and we're so good at evaluating every nuance of the human face. It's very difficult to fool a well-trained person. But I think a lot of people are just, it's like trying to talk to someone who's 125 IQ and you're 90. It's just you're just nothing to talk to about. All right. So that's the kind of the catch-22. And I think that's also probably true for AI writing. It's like I read something that's like, an AI wrote this. I'm like, this is really good for a robot. but it doesn't read like a person. And so sometimes if you're sitting there reading an article and you're like, it feels like a robot wrote this. Chances are it did. That's like the linguistic uncanny valley. There's a linguistic uncanny valley there where it's like, he's not wording things the way a person would. It's too like, I don't know, it's too whatever it is. Yeah, it's interesting that the more exposure we have to AI art, the better we are at clocking it. Sort of like the other things in modern society. That's true. That's an interesting thing as well. Is that when we first saw AI art, people were like, whoa, a computer made that? And then you look closely and you're like, well, there's a lot of little weird things about it. But it's really impressive that a computer did that. It's like, I still have a Midjourney subscription. And like, what do I do with it? Mostly it's like my kids draw fantasy creatures and then like, they make it do like, here's a picture of this fantasy creature I made up. And they're like, oh, that looks cool. And they find one they like. And then they like, will draw their own pictures of it or whatever. So they like, it's a toy. It's just a toy and then it's like, oh, that's cool that robot could, whoa, look, it's a cute little frog with fairy wings and a unicorn horn. I'm going to call it an EP. That's a magical creature my daughter made up. She wanted the robot to draw her an EP because she couldn't draw it very good, right? So it kind of came out as like, that's an EP. Very fun little uses for it. But do those things improve art overall? The answer is no. Art has not entered a new golden age because AI pushed artists in new directions or allowed them to do better art. It hasn't. Sorry. AI art can do some cool stuff, and it's impressive a lot of times what it can do, and it could definitely make more art, right? You can make more images, but more of a thing does not mean better of a thing, right? I can make you 100,000 gallons of Budweiser. It doesn't improve the beer. It doesn't even make Budweiser beer. Let's be honest. You can't sell Budweiser as beer in Europe, by the way, because it's not made with barley and hops. It's like rice water. What I find fascinating about That Hideous Strength is, just like the dystopian novel when Christians write these stories, there's always a higher sense of justice against the dictatorship. Yeah. It's not just that the dictatorship oppresses you to its own ends. It's that there is a higher justice, and in That Hideous Strength, there's a happy ending. The dystopia is averted through faith and basically through intercession. It's averted. It's a good thing. There was a Twilight Zone episode that did this. Everyone had pig faces, and one beautiful woman who looked like us was considered so ugly she had to be exiled to an island of ugly people who looked good. Yep. Most dystopian fiction written by atheistic types like Orwell or globalist Jacobins like Aldous Huxley have outright determinist views on the nature of good and evil with no-win scenarios. Yep. There's an inevitability of evil triumphing. Whereas like Christian writing is usually more optimistic. It's like, yes, the defeat happens, but the ultimate good is never destroyed and can't ever be destroyed. And if you look at history, if you just look at the past 2,000 years of history, there's been many tyrannies, but there's been many defeats of tyranny too. So the oppression is often a temporary setback. It's a temporary thing that's endured, and then something comes and sweeps it away. Something happens that changes everything. I've noticed a lot of articles on the new hot games are farmed out to AI. When I searched for Helldivers 2 articles, it was common to see ones that clearly were not made by a human. That's exactly my point. Now, this is one of the things. Let's think about the bad things that AI has done. This is a huge one to me, is that it's made internet searches much less useful than they used to be. So what you do now, and I mentioned this in the article, is you type in a search and you hop down to Reddit to see what other human beings are saying about it. So if you're like, is Helldivers 2 good? Reddit. Then you're going to see a thread of human beings discussing the finer points of why Helldivers 2 is good. Why does it matter that a human is saying it? Well, why do you trust the robot? The robot is designed to get you to click it by using SEO keywords, and it may be just designed to sell you the game. It's not designed to be truthful to you. Why would it be truthful? That's not its point for existing. Its point of existing is to get you to click. It has no point of existing, right? It never questions its existence because it's not conscious. It's just a program that writes things. So yeah, that's... Now a lot of search results are just dead, right? You just are not going to get human input from an internet search. That sucks. That's like killer on the internet. That is like internet poison. The whole point of search, the like critical importance of a search engine is to connect you to other people. That's the point of social media as well. And I remember years ago on Twitter, me and my brother-in-law called it the land of robots, because every author we came across on Twitter was an automated account, and all it did was retweet other authors to nobody. Like it didn't even generate book sales. It just generated the illusion of social media influence. And I found out later that a lot of these author profiles are actually run by a vanity press called Calumet Editions. Would run all these fake author profiles. You pay them money, and they had a little automated bot that would put out links to the books, and then all the other automated bots that had paid Calumet Editions would then retweet it. So it would look like, oh, you have 20,000 followers, they're all bots. You got 100 retweets, all by bots, 2 bots. You got 300 likes, all bots. Your Twitter presence is exploding thanks to our service. But none of it's real. How many people are buying the book? Nobody. Nobody's buying the book because you're not interacting with humans. If you want to sell books on social media, you have to be social. You have to talk to other human beings, and you have to interact with them, and you have to tell jokes to them and laugh at their jokes and have a conversation with them and talk about your books that way, right? You have to be a human being. So the better chatbots get, the worse social media is going to get. Eventually, you won't be able to type in is Helldivers 2 good Reddit and see humans. You're going to type in is Helldivers 3 good Reddit, and it's going to be a bunch of bots talking to themselves on Reddit. So we'll make the AIs, they'll go make Reddit accounts, they'll make Reddit threads, they'll vote each other up. You're going to see a bunch of robot Reddit accounts that have a shit ton of karma because all the other bots are programmed to give bots karma. So it'll just be a bunch of bots having karma to fool idiots. And all the people will have to move on somewhere else. We're gonna go back to GameStop. This is what we're gonna end up having to do. We're gonna go back to GameStop. We're gonna be like, hey, GameStop guy at the counter, is Helldivers 3 good? He'd be like, I played it this weekend. It sucks ass. Don't buy it. And it's like, aren't you supposed to sell me games? He's like, I'll sell you a different game. Don't buy this one. Instead, buy this game, right? We're gonna have to develop more. We're gonna have to go back in time. We have to go back to the year 2000 and have vetted human sources, and we're going to have to make friends with people in the real world and in our own little isolated spaces that aren't AIs, so that we can actually have some human perspective on whether something's good or not. And I don't think you can just convince someone that Helldivers 3 is good by telling them it, right? I'm imagining a future Helldivers, by the way. I'm not confused over which Helldivers is out right now. I'm imagining in the future Helldivers 3. If we just tell everybody it's good, then they'll just parrot that. Yeah, some people will. Some people will just say something's good because a bunch of robots told them it was good. And because they want to fit in with other people, not realizing that the robots are people. At that point, the Turing test has been passed, right? Is that the AI is good enough to fool a human into thinking that it's a human when it's not. But the rest of us, we're going to be like, those are all robots, and I don't even trust that they're real. What does my neighbor say about it? Is Helldivers 3 good? No, man. I got a GameCube. Let's play some Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Yeah, the internet's not even regressing. The internet was more useful in 1999 as far as search engines go. The internet was more robust, more diverse, more usable, even outside of search engines, in 1999 than it is now. So we haven't regressed. We've progressed. We're falling into a kind of dark age where the internet is just not going to be as useful as it was. Back in 1999, the search results might be imperfect, but they would point you to a bunch of things. They point you to other people. Here's this dude's website. Here's this, here's this forum that you can join and talk about that thing. You'd find all kinds of other things where you would connect with other people that weren't social media. So the search results are really critical for finding other people pre-social media. Now, once social media is like completely destroyed by robots, then we won't be able to use it for its previous function of connecting with other humans. And that's going to be interesting. I don't know where we'll go from that. We will have to regress to pre-internet, more human connection. That, by the way, is also what I think will be the use case for publishers in the future. So right now, I'm not going to say right now. Recently, it's hard for me to sell a publisher. If you're a really competent writer and you can do the other stuff like marketing, then there's no reason to go with a big publisher because you'll make more money and sell more books doing it yourself. I think that the business has been really royally screwed by AI over the last 2 years to where that's way harder than it used to be. So there is a use case for publishers there, but the use case for publishers in the future will just be a filter. Maybe I should start a publishing company, right? Like maybe I should start an imprint that my whole existence is just to filter what's available, right? We won't call it DDS Press. We'll call it Zool Publishing or something, right? We'll call it Ravenheart Publishing. All about ravens, baby. Nevermore Publishing. What does my publishing company do? Well, I publish people, but by me publishing it that a human made it, that it's good or it's in the same area as what I've published before, and you can trust it. You can trust that it's going to be good. Okay, Peel and Press. That's I don't think I've had him on the show. I think I've had these guys on the show. I need to have more of these guys on the show. That's one of my goals for this next year-long cycle, right? Is get more publishers and stuff on the show. But that's going to be the use case for publishers, even small publishers, small, big, whatever, is that it cuts through the noise and you know that it's going to be something that's at least worth considering because it's actually published. Whereas self-published stuff is going to be the realm of kind of where it is now, schlock and AI, right? And if you are wanting to sell schlock, we're going to need to have some schlock publishers. We're going to need to have some pulp romance publishers, erotica publishers, whatever it's going to be, in order to let people know that it's not an AI product, and that it's a human product, and that it meets a minimum level of standard, right? So if you already have a platform and you can build that platform, you could probably still do the independent publishing thing, but we're going to need to rethink what we're doing over the next couple of years because of AI. Now, AI, besides destroying search results, also destroyed the Kindle platform. Okay, so there's huge amounts of AI stuff on Kindle, so much that, there were already millions of books being released. We didn't need more books. There was one thing that we probably didn't need more of, and it was books. So AI is a solution to a problem which never existed and is actually making books worse through making too many of them. Even if you think they're written okay, there's going to be too many of them, which means no one's ever going to read them. Maybe the future would be AI that's so good you can be like, AI, write me a book. And then you can have a book. But to me, that's completely unappealing. The whole point of a book is that it's a human experience. Right? That another person wrote it. There's a story of how they wrote it. Like them writing it is a story. The story of how they wrote it is just as important as the story that's in the pages. It's not just like pornography that you consume and throw away. Right? Like we're reducing, by thinking of art like that, we're reducing art to the level of pornography. It's just a consumable product to give you some kind of pleasure and then throw away. I don't want books to be that way. I don't want art to be that way. Even something like this, which you can think of as, well, that's kind of silly, right? Is this little like anime Our Lady of Perpetual Help? That's what this model is modeled off of, is an icon in the Vatican called Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Very famous Byzantine icon, right? But so many people see this and love it. And they're like, man, I love that. And not only do they see it and love it, like they see it and they have a religious affection for it. Like, what a cool way of portraying our Lord, right? That's a weird thing to say. Like, well, it's like an anime thing. Isn't it a joke? It's not really a joke. It's just an aesthetic system. And moreover, if people look at it and they like it and they think about the incarnation of our Lord, right? That's what that icon is representing. It's not just Mary. It's the incarnation of our Lord, because he comes through Mary to our world, right? It's his incarnation, his birth. Just like how we'll see him enthroned in heaven. You see this sometimes in Byzantine churches, whether it's like Greek Orthodox or like Eastern Catholic. You'll have an image of the incarnation, and then you'll have an image of Christ crucified, and then you'll have an image of Christ in heaven. So it might be above it. You might see like Jesus and Mary, and then you'll see a crucifix in the middle, like on the screen. And then maybe on the screen or behind it, when the screen opens up, when Mass is performed or when liturgy is performed, you may see Christ in heaven, or you may see like Christ giving out the Eucharist or something like that, right? So you have these three images of Christ: Christ fully incarnate, Christ's death and suffering, Christ's not only resurrection, ascent into heaven in his heavenly form. Very cool. But anyway, like these aesthetics actually point to something, and like just because they're there's Japanese icons from the olden days in their style. They don't lose any of their power because they're in the Japanese aesthetic system. It's that system is still being used to try to point to the good. Yeah, we can end up with some different apparent forms, but the form that they're pointing to is the same. That's my big point, right? And that's what all aesthetics should do. Like, there's many different ways to approach aesthetics, and how we interpret them has a lot to do with where our standing is when we encounter the art. What we've used to before, what we haven't seen up till then, our spiritual inclinations. There's a lot of things that affect how we might react to this, or like this is, I can't see this, but there's one of my book covers there. This is art by Jesse White. I'm going to pull, here's some other art by Jesse White. Right? Beautiful stuff, right? This guy fighting skeletons. It's like, how does this point to the good? It's like, it actually does, dude. See, this guy's like fighting evil. There's like a power to that. You wouldn't think it because it's like from a fantasy comic, but it does point. It points to the good, and that's really a good thing in my opinion. So anyway, that's my rant on that. In the future, we're going to need. In fact, I'm gonna look him up on Twitter. Yes. All right, I am going to link. This publisher. Why does it matter that we have publishers? Well, we're going to need them to vet people. We're going to need that human filter. We're going to need a lot more of it in the future, because we're going to be so overwhelmed with the noise of AI and automated garbage that does nothing for us, that we're going to really need it. Where were we? Not just games. Reviews for products like household appliances. Yes, excellent propaganda, Pat. Cars, etc. Now we've got to find reviews from chat rooms, blog style sites. Absolutely. That's a problem. And the problem is that past about, let's say 2024, 2025, we're not going to be able to rely on those either, because companies and governments are clever. They'll use AI to flood the chat rooms with bots that post good reviews. We won't be able to trust that it's a human being. Do you know what I mean? We're going to need poorly written stuff, and then someone's going to write an AI that intentionally writes poorly to make you think it's some auto mechanic giving a review of like a Toyota when it's not. Yeah, return to game facts. That's what I'm talking about. So you think that retail may actually make a comeback because people want to avoid bots and get legitimate human interaction? Absolutely. Another problem with Amazon. Amazon is kind of this ball of entropy right now. What's your confidence level on the product quality of an Amazon purchase that has 4 stars? Because I'll tell you how I look at Amazon products, and maybe I'll bring up my Amazon real quick. I'll just bring up like an Amazon page, and we'll look at something. I'm gonna do a search. Let's do a search for like an innocuous item. Here we go. I was looking at light bulbs. Okay, let me find it. Let's bring this up. Okay. And actually put these in my cart, so I'm just gonna. Right. Let's see if I can show this. So I might buy these, but I have no confidence that they're going to be good. All right, here we go. So here's some light bulbs. All right, 530. We start having to do a bunch of filtering to figure out like, are these actually garbage or not? We look at them. This isn't a real picture of them, so that doesn't really help us. It's just some like pictures of like rooms with lights. Okay, let's look at the ratings. 4.5 stars. It's probably pretty good. I look at this, I'm like, let's see what the 1 stars say. Very short lifespan, didn't last long, only 10 of 12 worked, don't buy. Burned out, don't purchase. These are real people. Do not buy, incredibly poor quality. Poor quality, didn't last, terrible, failed. Let's look at the 5-star reviews. Are these real? Great price, very easy to replace this bulb. Worked great, just as described. Haven't had long enough. Still 5 stars. Fabulous price on Xeon 40-watt bulbs. More than I needed at this price. I can't go wrong. I don't really trust these. This one's probably real. Because it's in Spanish. And like, look, there's a little picture of a lady there. That one's probably real. So some people like them. You know, they keep saying the same things over and over again. So there's probably a bunch of Amazon bots that maybe bought these. You know? It says verified purchase. It's pretty easy to fake. And you can do the same thing for like, I don't know, like shrink wrap. Like, is this shrink wrap gonna be good? Is it gonna be bad? Don't know, you know. Is it gonna be bad or good shrink wrap? It's like I just don't trust it. But I know that the stuff that Home Depot sells is going to be okay. Because if it was really bad, people come back and get angry about it. Do you know what I mean? So I think retail will make a comeback because like a lot of the items that you get on Amazon are just bad. I think Louis Rossman made a video on this. That like, you know, you want to buy wire nuts. You buy wire nuts on Amazon and you get them and they don't work, right? They're like complete trash. You go down to like Home Depot and all the wire nuts have been stolen. And so you're screwed, you know? I guess the plus side of AI taking people's faces and voice to make videos is it will force people to touch grass. Yeah. Not only can you not trust, you used to be able to trust like someone on a YouTube video talking, right? But now you can't even fully trust that. Return of Redbox. Is it possible to build your own search engine? It is possible. People have done it. The question is whether you could build a personal search engine. That is a much more challenging idea. Could you build one that's just for you? I don't know. Is AI the AC? Oh, thank you for the super chat. I'm sorry I missed this. With the level of censorship PC and woke AI won't write... Dog Niggin, it has Boondock style dialogue in a manga webtoon. You gotta force it. Yeah. Humor is not something that I think robots are really gonna be good at, other than like repeating the jokes other people have said. See, I saw like an AI of a Dave Chappelle. Someone made an AI Dave Chappelle and they had ChatGPT write the jokes. This was not funny at all. It was not funny. It was like, this seems like a joke Dave Chappelle would write and say, but I'm not laughing. There's nothing funny about it. You know, there's some concepts that AI is not going to understand because it doesn't have consciousness. Human writers will have to use racial slurs to prove they're human. Bless you. Bless you. I have a 4-star headphone that's been working perfectly for 2 years. I have some cheap Chinese headphone stuff that's been working great. But, you know, you could tell with like some of the brands that it's like Nguyen brand. It's like, is that a real brand? And so we're going to go back to really valuing brands. It's like, I'm going to buy the Sony headphones. Why are you buying Sony headphones? Because Sony made them. Well, that's a stupid reason. There's probably some Chinese manufacturer that could make just as good a headphones for half the price. Yeah, but I don't know if they'll actually be good, whereas I know Sony's will be of a certain quality, right? Even if there's better headphones than Sony's, right? Or whatever your brand is. I think these are... Oh, these are... what are these? Oh, these are Bear Dynamics, right. These are pretty common headphones. DT770 Pros. These are 80 ohms. There's like a 30 ohm that my wife has. Those are also good. So if you're doing like a lot of casual listening, you can get the lower ohms. But I like these. Oh, they're very nice. Very nice. You're going to buy Bear Dynamics because it has a brand name. Yes, maybe they're made in China even, right? Like you buy AKGs now are like made in China, but they're made to a good enough standard that you can trust them. I would not drop big money on less than 5 at this point. Tell me you're not a mom. No, tell me you're not a bot. Your mom. Pass. There's a turtle on the ground. It's upside down. Why don't you flip it over? 5 stars might not even be enough. Amazon is full of nothing but the same Chinese company selling the same item under a different name. The only thing Amazon has on other retailers is convenience. I agree. Worked great, just as described. It's 100% fake. What's your PC specs? Let me think. It's an MSI. Whoa, what's the motherboard? I have a manual. I think it's a Z690. Running I think a 16 core Core i9, 13K. It's 13th gen. I think there's been some problems with that, but it's working great for me. 128 gigs of RAM, I think. DDR5 RAM. I have a RTX 3080, 12 gig. Built this a couple years ago. It's been a really good platform. My old one worked just fine, by the way, and that was running a GTX 970 and an 8-core Intel processor. 64 gigs of RAM. Probably DDR4. And I built that in like 2015, 2016, quite a while ago by like today's standards. And this is a point I made in my article, which is that the user needs for computers have been pretty flat for like 10 years. If you take gaming out of the equation, your typical like productivity user hasn't needed all that extra power really at all. You know, you do most of your corporate work on a laptop from like 15 years ago. And I know because I still do lots of work on a laptop from 2010 or 2011. Still works fine. Still runs Microsoft Word, Windows 10, and every other freaking thing. You know? Quentin Tarantino confirmed human. Apparently a lot of different brands use the same Chinese factory, so it's multiple people selling the same product. Absolutely. So this is another thing people don't realize about guitars that I knew from way back in the day. People be like, Samick guitars, where are they made? I'm like, they're made in the same place as every other guitar. The Samick factory in Taiwan makes them. Oh. Or maybe it was Korea. It might have been Seoul, Korea at that point. Oh, okay. Yeah, where are fenders made? Same factory. Where are Washburns made? Same factory. Where are Epiphones made? Same factory. They're all made in the same guitar factory. But a brand contracts with that factory to make a guitar. Now this one's actually made in a plant that only makes Fenders, right? Because it's a Fender. But like for a lot of the import brands, like LTD is made in Indonesia. There's not an LTD factory. It's a factory that makes LTD, Ibanez. It makes like every brand. They make a guitar to the specifications of that brand. They tool up for it. They make a bunch of them with whatever options and whatever parts that they want. This was like a thing where, there's some stuff that Fender's done and people pull off the thing and it's a Gibson bridge, or it says Gibson or Epiphone on the back. And they're like, why is there a Gibson part on this? It's like it was made in a factory that made the same parts for Gibson. So they just used Gibson parts because they were the same. They're the exact same parts. So they just used them to make the guitar, right? Unless you're getting like good parts like Godot parts or something like that, you're not going to get. Those are made in a different place. And they might ship them to the factory and put them on. But anyway, yeah. So the factory makes a bunch of products for a bunch of different brands. A lot of people don't realize that. But the importance of the brand name is that brand has value. So the brand kind of has to defend its value. It has to make sure that its products meet a minimum level of quality, or it'll harm that brand. They'll lose customers. So I think we'll see even more like brand loyalty things coming out. Samsung. I'm wearing a Samsung watch, right? I would have bought another Samsung phone, but they took the jack out. So it's a Sony phone, right? It's a big brand. Like, could I buy some weird Chinese brand and make it work? Absolutely. It's probably made in the same place. But there's a certain quality assurance that comes from buying an Apple or a Samsung product that makes you want to buy it. And it's a lot of it's earned, right? Like I have a PlayStation 5 and it works pretty much flawlessly for how complex it is. Especially, there's very few errors on it, and that was the same with the PS3. Right, this stuff works at a pretty high level when you think about it. Oh, could you build a gaming PC for $500? Like, yeah, you could. But is it going to work as good as a PS5 and provide that same quality experience? You'll find that like your PC that is on paper much better than a PlayStation 5, when you actually get it working, doesn't run as good as a PlayStation 5, even now. That's how it is. A lot of people aren't buying PlayStation 5, by the way, because they just don't care about the graphical increase. They have a 1080p TV. They don't care about 4K. They don't care about ray tracing. The PS4 is good enough. The games that they want to play are still out on the PS4. They don't need to buy a PS5 to do anything. So user demand for increased hardware has been flat. How do we keep increasing hardware? How do we keep spending R&D money? AI. That's it. So we're going to put AI in freaking everything so that the hardware requirements will go up, so people will have to buy new computers to run their Copilot. If you want to run Copilot, you got to buy a new computer with better hardware. It's like no one wants Copilot. You can pump it up all you want. No one wants a freaking chatbot in their OS. Does anyone want this? I don't think anyone wants it. I think it's just a complete non-starter. Complete non-starter. You know? AI's lack of emotion comes off psychopathic. It reminds me of the first contact in Blind Side. Yeah, it's all about what does the user want me to sound like or do, which is a psychopathic trait. Talking about honest reviews reminds me of the Elizabeth Reyes quote, "Only 3 types of people tell the truth: kids, the drunk, and the angry." What do you think about gamification of learning musical instruments? I got my son doing piano with VR here and there. Any experience with Rocksmith for guitar? A little bit. I've had piano students that use little gamification things. It can work part of the way. It can get you part of the way there, like whatever works. I think it's better to gamify just the act of practicing so you get a reward for doing it, you know? So if your son practices guitar for 30 minutes, he gets a prize from the prize box. It's just as reinforcing as having a game. People like the idea of gamification because it's got constant reinforcement rather than like really delayed gratification. It's got a more immediate thing. We just take the principles of gamification and bring them into your musical instrument practice for your kids. So, hey, if you practice for 20 minutes, play me this song. If it's 80% good, then I'll give you $10 or whatever it is. Give them a reward for success. If you just reward them progressing to a certain quality, they'll do it just like they do in Guitar Hero. But the question is, what reward do they want? Do they want a cookie? Do they want money? Do they want a pat on the back? Do they want more video game time? Right? Things like that. So it can work, if they're into the software for it. The problem is the software doesn't teach you expression. It doesn't teach you musicality. There's a bunch of stuff that's missing. So it's one tool in the toolbox. It's not a bad tool. I've had people and students that get really excited about stuff like that, and other students that couldn't care less. I've had piano students who use like gamified stuff, but they just bring up a YouTube video of it so that they can learn the fingerings because they don't want to look at sheet music. This was a thing when I taught piano years ago. Whatever gets you there, I'm okay with it. Whatever gets you excited. In the future, being a human online or having such interactions will violate community guidelines in terms of service. I bought a crappy Motorola phone solely for the fact that it had a headphone jack. Yeah, there's very few flagship phones that do it. And what they figured out is that the people who are buying expensive phones, they are happy to buy expensive wireless headphones to go with them. The Sony Link Buds and the Samsung Galaxy Buds and the Apple EarPods or AirPods or whatever. They're pretty happy to buy the headphones that go along with it at a really high premium. That's also another thing I like about Sony stuff like Link Buds is you can get them really cheap if you're clever. And they're actually, I've tested them all out, like Apple AirPods. They're great technology. They work well. Sound quality, very mid. That's been the true, same thing with Beats. Like the Beats headphones, people were buying those up. I'm like, these sound like $20 Skull Candy headphones, which they basically were, same drivers probably in the same factory. But for whatever reason, the Sony ones, they're like the value falls off a cliff. You can get like refurbished XM4s for like less than $100 if you're careful. And those actually sound like $200 headphones. They don't sound like shit. Whereas like you get the Galaxy Buds and you're like, these sound okay. They sound like you just plugged in a pair of okay Chinese earbuds, but they're wireless and they work with Samsung phones. They're in the Samsung environment, so people like that. Yeah. Quality assurance as long as they maintain the quality. Yeah. A lot of companies seem to throw away customer goodwill by lowering the quality of their stuff, and suddenly things break and fail. That's true. It happens. But sometimes that doesn't affect things. Like the stick drift problem only appeared in controllers the last 6 years. But everybody's got it. So like this stuff, I'm going to screw Sony. I'm going to play Xbox. Now my Xbox controller has stick drift. My Nintendo controller has stick drift. Every controller has stick drift now. Pat, waiting for the day when we can make our custom phones like people can make custom PCs. I am with you. I think you can do it in China, but you can do it here. I would love that. I'd love to be able to go, I want this. Now here's a use case for AI. Is like you have a computer, not really AI, but like you have a really highly evolved computer, little mini manufacturing plant where you're like, okay, I want a phone with this processor, this RAM, this solid state drive, this screen, this form factor, headphone jack. I want it to be USB-C. I want to have this audio driver, this digital audio converter in it. I want this much output for the headphone jack. And it's like a symbol, and the machine's like, and out comes your phone, fully like soldered together perfectly, sealed up with Gorilla Glass, and you're like, yes. That'll be cool. People, I had a computer engineer for a student many years ago. And his like, in the future, we'll have computers that will like, You'll give them a blood sample, it'll analyze it, and it'll come up with a perfect concoction of drugs to cure whatever's wrong with you, and it'll just inject it into you. It'll be completely automated by AI. This is like 2007. This guy was saying that, and it was like, that sounds cool. And now we're here, and it's like, no. Instead, it's just making more paperwork for everyone. And it's like, no, it didn't happen. Maybe one day. Remember that AI paperclip assistant from the 2000s? Yeah. Seems like you're trying to write a letter. Would you like some help? The one phone I had that had a removable battery was super durable. I dropped it all the time, but it just split harmlessly into 3 pieces. Could tell when the battery went bad too. Yeah, I had one that the battery started to puff out. Ordered a new battery for $14. Phone worked like new again. Technically, you can still remove your battery from your smartphone, but it takes more work and tools. Had to replace phone parts twice. Very inconvenient, but cheaper than buying again. Yep. Honestly, I'm thinking of just buying a dumb phone, rejecting modernity, embracing tradition. So, I thought about this, and I think it would be like a great piece of YouTube content. It's like, no smartphone, how does our life look? I think Brian Niemeyer found a video of like a Zoomer doing 1980s technology, and the end result was, in the 1980s, we had all the stuff we have now, but it was just less convenient, and it was in different objects. But, you know, you put a Garmin in your car. You get a GPS Garmin, you put it in your car. You get an old one. I have some old ones that still work. That's your GPS. Clunky to use. So you'll have to memorize the local stuff a little bit better because the Garmin is a little clunky. You know, you have a PS Vita. That's going to be a better gaming experience than your phone by a lot. So just put the Vita in your pocket. It's the same size as a phone. It's about the size of a phone. PS Vita. Boom, there's your gaming, on-the-go gaming. And the PS Vita has a camera in it. It's just not a smartphone, so it's not going to distract you with Twitter garbage. And a flip phone. There you go. You've multiplied your things into 3 objects. I mean, if you wanted to get really serious, it'd be like you have a DSLR camera in a bag, you have a 3DS, you have a flip phone, you have a Garmin in your car, a Walkman or an iPod. I have an iPod. I still have iPods, you know. So that's what you'd have to do to replace it all. Yeah. Got a pair of refurbished wireless Sony headphones on Amazon for $50 a few years ago. Still work like new. Likely were new and they just wanted to get rid of them. Yep. I have a pair of Sony Link Buds I got for $40 off of Woot. And they were so cheap I bought an extra pair, and I was glad because my first pair went through the wash. I didn't take them out of my pocket. My wife washed them. Not upset. I'm like, okay, I bought an extra pair anyway of these $250 headphones for $40. And I like the wirelessness when I'm doing stuff like the wire can catch if I'm doing like dishes. It catches on handles and stuff. If I'm mowing the lawn, I use in-ear monitors that like really seal things up. They have like a 25 decibel reduction. Put the wire down there and plug it into the phone. You go for hours. You don't have to worry about nothing. No interference. No. The problem with like Bluetooth stuff is like if I'm weeding, if I'm out like picking weeds, then like bending over, all of a sudden it loses connection because it's in my pocket. Like wireless stuff doesn't work nearly as well as wired. Mid is the most useful word Zoomers ever gave us. Sus is funny, but you can't really say that with a straight face as well as mid. Yeah. I am personally a fan of fluoride stare. Say something positive about the Latter-day Saints. Be gentle. I love Mormons. I've had many Mormon friends. They've all been awesome friends, and they've all been good people. I don't agree with their faith, right? I don't believe in their faith, but them as people are really good. And I think it's because the church really fosters community. It's very pro-family. It believes in an eternity of the relationship of marriage. And while that may not, adhere to everybody's beliefs, I think that makes them buy into the relationship of marriage even more. I've met some divorced Mormons. It's not that divorce never happens, but the marriages I've met from Mormons have been really committed and really happy. They really love their kids. Everybody, tends to be a lot of involvement in church as far as like running the church and doing things for the church. It isn't like where a lot of Protestant churches, like mega churches, end up as these organizations where they're acting like a business service for the people that go there, and Mormon churches don't tend to work that way. So it's good. They still make beautiful religious art in a lot of cases. So not iconography in the traditional sense, but Mormon artists make great pictures of Jesus, and they're really beautiful. So there's still a belief in beauty and aesthetics and cleanliness. There's a good purity culture that is reinforced there. I could say so many good things about Mormons. They even have it's not as strong as it used to be, but a rebellious streak. Remember that, like, the state of Deseret, what's today Utah, was created by the Mormons, and there was even like a brief little conflict. I don't know if I'd call it a war with the U.S. government over whether they could be their own country and stuff. So there's a little bit of a rebellious streak. They're critical of government and of conformity. Now, I think a lot of that has gone away. But it's not because the religion did away with it. I think it's just Mormonism in the greater secular area has regressed a little bit to the Protestant mean. And that's happened with every American religion, is that it starts with a strong revolutionary prophetic spirit, and then it regresses to the Protestant mean. Maybe Mormons need to, reject that. Maybe they need to embrace tradition more. But you have to think about a lot of the weird things that are things that we considered weird that we associate with the various strains of Mormonism. There's more than one Mormon church, by the way. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the biggest and the main one, but there have been schisms, and so there are Mormon churches that exist that are part of the Mormon movement that are in schism with the Latter-day Saints. So for outsiders that aren't aware, that exists. The original site of the original temple, I think, is, at least up until recently, was still part of one of those schismatics that followed one of Joseph Smith's relatives rather than Brigham Young. Sorry, not to pontificate on that too much, but I don't know, maybe that's something that Mormons need to think about, is we're regressing too much to the general Protestant mean of American culture, becoming a little too secular. But I could say a lot of good things about Latter-day Saints. There's even this is going to sound weird. Mormons are physically attractive because of their genetic heritage, because there's a little bit of there's almost a Mormon ethnicity because of the people who originally went to Utah back in the 1800s. So the ethnic makeup of Mormons tends to be really attractive. It's full of blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. They're all pretty. Most of the Mormon girls I knew were really pretty girls. How about those flying cars and lunar colonies? The future is far more mundane and practical than anybody imagined. But the dystopian vision is damn near exact. Yeah. We got all the bad parts without all the cool parts. It's this is my point about cyberpunk is not relevant. It's not socially relevant anymore because we have the corporate cyberpunk dystopia. We just don't have I'm an actual cyborg, right? Here's my cybernetic implant right here. Okay. It's a hearing aid that's attached to an implant that's drilled into my skull. Right? So we have cybernetics. They're just not as cool. It's not I have robot hands and I have robot eyes. It's not as weird and gross. But we have them, and we have corporate overlordship and NGOs and all kinds of other bad things. But it's pretty clean. It's like a clean dystopia. It's a sterile dystopia for a lot of people. It's not we have this division. There's the fentanyl addicts on the street are in hell, and then everybody else is in a rather in a rather sterile purgatory where nonetheless they are depressed and need drugs to get through the day. I mean, if there's any better conviction of the idea that the material is what creates happiness, modern society is it. People are more materially wealthy and comfortable than they've ever been, and yet they're super depressed and anxious and neurotic and subject to all kinds of mental illnesses. They need antidepressants to get through the day. There's a whole movement of people that believe you need to mutilate the body to be happy. Like, this is, no one had the money to be cutting up people to see if they'd be happy 150 years ago. A lot of Mormons in the military. They're pretty good people. Yeah, they've always been good. Do you have any recommendations for a home defense firearm? Revolver or autoloader? Shotgun. Okay, so I love this question, and I'm going to go deep. If you're buying a pistol and you have no other guns, and it must be a pistol, buy a revolver. Smith & Wesson. You can get them at gun shows. You can get them at the store. In a stressful situation, a revolver is much easier to operate than an automatic because it's simplicity. And if you're not super experienced with firearms where you've drilled in your head exactly how to use the firearm and you're never going to mess it up, then a revolver is ideal. So it's a great first pistol because a Smith & Wesson is a double action revolver. You have to meaningfully pull the trigger for it to cycle and fire. I could go get a gun and show you, but I don't know, that might be a problem on YouTube, right? But you have to, it's a long pick trigger pull. You can't accidentally just twitch and it pulls. There's no hair trigger on a Smith & Wesson. Same thing if you buy a Colt Python. Colt Python's my favorite, but good luck getting those, and they're expensive. You can get Smith & Wesson revolvers for a lot less, and I've got some, and they're great. Or you can cock it and then pull it. So you can do it as single or double action. Double action means that it cocks and fires in one draw. So when you pull it, it pulls the hammer back, and then when you click it, it releases the hammer. The hammer strikes the firing pin, or the firing pin will be on the hammer with a lot of Smith & Wessons. Most of the ones in fact, I think all the ones I have, it's one. Hammer hits the primer ignites the main charge, fires the bullet out of the barrel. That's really easy to operate under a stressful situation. If you're picking one gun to have, you can only afford one gun and it has to do everything you need it to do. It's a 12 gauge shotgun. The reason for that is there's many reasons. First of all, you can load it with buckshot. Produces a big spread. You do not have to have a high amount of skill to hit somebody with a shotgun. Shooting buckshot. Excellent for home defense, that buckshot is. A couple reasons. First of all, it does massive damage to your attacker. It shoots 12 9mm projectiles, I think, if you're getting double-aught buckshot. And you can even get double-aught buckshot in 3-inch shells with a modern gun, which will shoot, I think, two more little pieces of buckshot. Anyway, that's great. It doesn't come out at a strong enough velocity to be going through the walls of your house and hitting people down the street. All right, if I shot at someone with a .357 Magnum and I missed, it could go through my house and into my neighbor's house across the street, because the muzzle potential, the muzzle velocity is so high, and there's so much power potential with the bullet, it could shoot through the walls. Now I shoot hollow points, so that reduces that a little bit. But anyway, yeah, a revolver, 38. So if you're going to get a revolver, what should you get? .357 Magnum, if they have it. It's easy to get the ammo. You can fire .38 special in it if you want to. But it's really easy to get the ammo. Really easy to reload if you want to do that. Plentiful. Plenty of power. All the power you could need for self-defense. And you can even hunt with the .357 Magnum. Right? I have. So you can do that as well. But with the 12 gauge shotgun, yeah, your home defense, you use buckshot. You could use a slug. You can hunt deer with slugs. or you could shoot humans with slugs. A 1 ounce slug is freaking serious. Okay, you get rifled slugs for your shotgun. That's usually what police use, are rifled slugs. They are serious. You could also load it with birdshot, go bird hunting. You could take up trap shooting, which is a great pastime, super fun, not that expensive because shotgun ammo is still not super expensive. You go out to the trap, shoot it, get familiar with your gun, having some fun, pick up a skill, learn to go bird hunting. In an emergency situation where like, let's say shit hits the fan, you can scavenge for food with your 12 gauge shotgun by shooting local birds and eating them. You can defend yourself against attackers with your 12 gauge shotgun. You can shoot deer and other large game with your 12 gauge shotgun. Ain't nothing that a 12 gauge shotgun can kill a bull elephant if you know where to hit it. Right between the eyes. Right? So, yes, a 12 gauge shotgun it's the most versatile weapon you can get. So if you're going to buy one gun, it's going to be a 12 gauge shotgun. And so therefore, I think if you're like, what's my first gun I should buy? Buy a 12 gauge shotgun. There's many brands. A pump action Mossberg 12 gauge shotgun is going to be a great buy. You can get a pump action Ithaca 12 gauge shotgun. I have several. They are awesome. I have Ithaca shotguns that are like 60 years old and they're still working great. I have Browning shotguns. Now my Brownings are auto loaders. They're great. Okay. An automatic, it's not that hard to operate. You can get an automatic shotgun. Get whatever one you want. Pump action shotgun is only better in the sense that you're not going to jam. You're not going to have to worry about like a stovepipe. You're not going to have a problem where you have to eject a shell real quick in the heat of whatever you're doing. The shell's always going to eject with the pump action shotgun. It just is. It's just like rock solid. But to me, what do I prefer to shoot? It's automatics. I prefer an automatic shotgun in pretty much every circumstance. I have pump actions. They're fine. If you get an Ithaca, they're kind of cool too because it'll release the firing pin when you throw the pump forward. So you can call it slam action. You can fire just by holding the trigger down and pumping it, which is kind of fun. I used to sell Franke. You can get a Franke AL-48. I still have 2 of those. They're great. You can buy them. They have an aluminum receiver. They're very cheap to buy. They work just as good as an Auto 5. They have the same action, and they are amazing field guns. They don't rust, right? And if they do rust because you bought it for like $200 or $300, you're not going to care that much about getting that rust off, right? So if I'm going like duck hunting or something, I like my aluminum Frankes. They're just rock solid. It's an Italian gun. Yes, you can definitely get a Mossberg shotgun for $400 to $600 or an Ithaca or any shotgun. Just have to look around. Used guns are great. Go to a gun show. Very sad that there are no gun vending machines like in Cyberpunk 2077. That's too bad. Think about ammo and how much you want to budget for that too. Yeah, you're going to have to pay for that unless you get into reloading. And you're still going to have to pay to get the equipment to reload. So, yeah. Luckily, 12 gauge shotgun ammo is still not that expensive. At least last time I looked at it. And same thing with 357 Magnum. It's a little more... all ammo's on the pricier side now, but you want to pick things that are going to be plentiful. So if someone's like, I'm building an AR and 6.8 SPC. It's like, where are you gonna get ammo for that when you need it? You're gonna have to load it yourself. Okay, I do that, right? I have a lot of weird, I have like a 250 Savage. I got stuff like that, but for people that you're buying like your first firearm, or you're in that situation where you're like, I'm looking to get into this, buy things that the ammunition is very plentiful and easy to get. Okay, and because you're talking about a purpose, that's why I mentioned a 12 gauge shotgun. If you're just looking to shoot, you should buy a 22. 22 is probably a better first gun for someone learning about guns. and wanting to just shoot a lot compared to any other thing. And the reason is because 22 ammo is dirt cheap. It's still dirt cheap. I remember telling people like, oh yeah, here's 1,000 rounds of 22 because I got boxes and boxes of it. But I can't believe you're just giving me this ammo. I'm like, 22 is still not expensive. Rimfire 22 long rifle ammunition is dirt cheap. So that's a really good first gun to buy too, is a 22. That'll teach you to shoot. You can shoot all day for a couple dollars. It's really, really, really cheap. And you can still do a lot with the 22. You could certainly hunt little varmints with the 22, and you can use it for self-defense. It doesn't have a lot of killing power, but if you shoot someone with a 22 in a self-defense situation, then they're going to be seriously injured. You're taking them out of a physical altercation equation for sure. So don't knock the 22 too hard, and 22s are really cheap. And there's so many good 22s to buy. I can't even begin, like a Remington 550 Speedster. It's a 22 rifle. It has a big long tube magazine. You can shoot like 18 shots in it. What a great way to learn shooting. And you can buy them for a couple $100, man. Yeah, so if you're thinking about the cost of ammo, definitely get a 22, and you can learn what you're doing. Great guns to practice on, and then once you're good, you can decide, like, I really want this gun, and you can go buy it, Dang, your knowledge on the LDS is better than mine. I've done some reading. I've known a lot of Mormons, talked to them. Don't show any guns on stream. YouTube will shut it down. I don't remember I thought Dirty Harry had a Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum. Yeah. So Dirty Harry had a Smith. The Colt Python's like a premium revolver. It's very good. Doesn't hearing implant audio differ from your memory of the default? Yes. But this is not a cochlear implant. This is a bone-anchored hearing aid. So my cochlea is still intact. It still sounds like normal sound. The processor doesn't duplicate a real ear exactly, but for a lot of situations, it's better than nothing. I'll be able to pick out conversations a little easier. I mainly have it for linguistic purposes. I don't worry about it for music, especially electric guitar. I just turn it up. Most pros that I meet, most pro rock musicians I meet, are as deaf as I am. Realistically, right? You just get it louder and you can hear it. But it's more for like, I'm in lots of situations where if I don't have my hearing aid, it's really hard for me to understand what people are saying. It's like they're speaking shotguns. It's like they're speaking Chinese. A shotgun also allows for non-lethal such as beanbags. I wouldn't worry about that, but yes, you can do that. You can load, and you can get a shotgun shell loader, and you could put rock salt. There's probably a YouTube channel of like, what can we put in the shotgun? Let's put safety pins, or let's put needles. What do needles do? Let's put some flechettes in it. A Beretta M9, they're cool. They're cool pistols. That's like the military divide. Everyone was very upset about the Beretta. They adopted that M9 because of the magazine capacity of a 1911 was only like 8 shots, 7 in the mag, and then you could put one in the chamber. Although I had like a lot of 8-round magazines. I even have some 10-round magazines, but they hang out the bottom. But like if my dad were here to talk about it, what he'd say is like the 45 has so much more power. It has a lot more power. So guys didn't want to pick up that 9mm because they thought the 9mm was too anemic for a sidearm. At close quarters combat, you want to put them down. You want to rip them apart. And a 45 ACP hits like a truck because of how heavy that bullet is. It's 1,200 feet per second, maybe. That's a low velocity round most of the time. But it's like 230 grains or something, which is a lot of power. And I remember we've gone out and tested. We shot some furniture, and I got out my 45. And I remember me and my dad shooting furniture at a junkyard, And once we started shooting it with a 45, it was blasting apart in different ways, right? We'd shoot it with a 357, which technically should have more impact force. It would just punch right through all the wood and hit the backstop. But the 45 was like making it explode into splinters. It was like the randomization of human tissue that can happen with a 45 ACP is intense. So a lot of old guys that I talked to, they didn't like the M9 because they thought the 9mm was like a pussy size. They thought it was like a little pussy gun. It's a 9mm, nice little pop gun, you know. But 9mm is fine, actually. It's actually very good. You know, it's approximate to a 38 just with lower velocity. And that's the other thing. It's like, well, if I'm going to use a 38, it's 357 Magnum. Let's hit him with some power. Let's hit him with some force. But that's their opinions. And the other reason a lot of guys don't like 9mm is it's really hard to reload 9mm. It has a slightly conical case. So a lot of times when you're trying to reload 9mm, you can do it, but you may only get like one reload out of most of your cases. Because they'll start cracking, especially around the rim. The brass thins out a lot and it cracks, and you have to trim the cases. So you're gonna have to trim the cases because of the, to flare them back out. You break them a lot of times. Anyway, it's just not as nice to reload. 45 ACP, those casings you can reload a lot. I've been seeing people picking up birdshot and practicing on clay pigeons because of drones. Yes. This will be the squad weapon for all future engagements. Is the good old boy from Utah who can shoot skeet, and he's gonna blast those drones out of the air with a Remington 1100 or whatever the squad weapon. They're gonna have some kind of. There is like a squad shotgun, but like that's what he's gonna be doing. His job is to shoot the drones down with a shotgun. Perfect weapon for it. It's perfect. Yeah. That was the other thing. It's like, this drone is terrorizing the airport. It's like, just get a couple guys with shotguns out there and that drone will be gone real quick. You know? If there was a problem at the airport, they're like, we got drones. Like, get that ski club down there with those Browning Superpose. That drone won't last long. He's not coming around again. I hadn't thought about that, but I guess it makes sense. Seeing videos from Ukraine of people aiming for drones. They have to. The Ukrainians are using suicide drones to fly in and just bomb Russian soldiers where they're sitting. Yeah, just like fly in and blow them up. Weird. Future war is weird. I can go for about another 15 minutes, maybe. Chat is so interesting. I just don't want to stop. Another benefit to the pump shotgun is that if you're married or have an otherwise compromised arm strength, you can put reduced power loads that won't slam her shoulder and get her to practice. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Because you don't need the gas. You don't need any kind of recoil or gas pressure to cycle a bolt. You're just doing it manually. So I'd say it's really good for that. Well, you don't know because it's heavier. All right, an over/under. The other thing you can do that I just recommend if like you're getting a gun for your wife is maybe start with like a 410. You can do 20 gauge. If I get one for my wife, I realized that I gave away all my 20 gauge shotguns. I could give my sister 20 gauge shotguns, and then my dad had this 20 gauge Auto 5, and I gave it to my uncle because he used to shoot squirrels with it like 30, 40 years ago. And he's like, oh, I used to shoot squirrels with that. I'm like, take it. This gun's yours now. If you have a happy memory of my dad's Auto 5, you can have it. I have plenty of guns that were his. But yeah, I'd get like a 20 gauge. Yeah, 20 gauge. Remington 800 or whatever that standard pump action is. Get them cheap. 20 gauge shotgun shells, you can still reload them. They're pretty good. There's a gun vending machine in Alabama. I haven't seen that. I don't know how you get around the federal stuff. The birds are real except if you hear a loud buzzing noise in the air. Is the 250 Savage the one made for the Model 99? My 250 Savage is a Remington Model 7, so I have no idea. You want to dump ammo like John Rambo or the Terminator. It's 22s. Yeah. Yeah, 22 rifles. They're cheap. You can get them. They're easy to clean. You know, they're good. You can do a lot of shooting on a 22 for very little money to invest in the gun and then to invest in the ammo. There's 22 pistols that are great. I basically have a Ruger Blackhawk in 22. It's not called a Blackhawk. It's exactly like my Blackhawk, but it's in 22 mag and 22, and you can switch out the cylinder between 22 long rifle and 22 mag, and it's really cool. You know, so like you can shoot. You get 22 revolvers. Those are fun. 22 pistols. I have one called. Who made that one? No, I have a Sig Sauer automatic in 22. Really cool. It's my wife's pistol. That's a cool pistol. The difference between the 45 and 9mm is probably larger when you use Full Metal Jacket. That's a good point, like in the military. A lot of better self-defense 9mm relies on hollow points to do the work. So if you don't know about hollow points versus Full Metal Jacket, I don't have any ammo to show it. A Full Metal Jacket means it's a bullet and the copper jacket completely encloses it. Whereas a hollow point, the top of the bullet is carved out, and you just have this empty cone in the middle and often lead around it. And so what the hollow point does is when it enters into an object, a body or whatever, it pulls and mushrooms apart. And so as it pulls apart into this larger amorphous form, it does more tissue damage as it passes through. And so the exit wound may be huge. If there is an exit wound, it just does a lot of damage. So why does the military use Full Metal Jacket when hollow point does more tissue damage? And the answer is the Geneva Convention. So that's part of it, but you can get theorists that will say, well, it's better to use Full Metal Jacket ammunition because, and to use even something smaller like a 223. A 223 is not a very strong rifle round. 223 versus like 308 or 30-06. British 303, the stuff we used in the first half of the 20th century, is way higher power than the stuff that's used in an M16, which is 5.56 or 223. I use American numbers, deal with it, right? So 223 is quite a bit smaller. But if you hit someone with a 223, you injure them. And when you injure them, they're taken out of the fight. Even though they're not dead, they're injured. And you take one other person because the second person has to figure out what to do with that injured person. They have to take them off the battlefield. They have to try to treat their wounds, right? They're worried about the injured person. So it actually can neutralize two opponents without killing them. The main idea of like Full Metal Jacket with Geneva stuff is that it's more humane. Like it doesn't cause as much death. It's like a less deadly bullet, but I think that's kind of dumb. But that makes sense, right? A Full Metal Jacket 45 ACP is going to be way more damaging than a Full Metal Jacket 9mm. But a hollow point 45 ACP is going to absolutely rip a person to shreds way more than a 9mm will too. It's just more lead. It's just more power. It's a bigger, heavier bullet doing more, randomizing more flesh. So it's still going to be better. I'm saying that this is an opinion of old guys, right? Take it for what it is. These are guys who were in the Army for decades, and they didn't like the M9. They didn't like 9mm. 9mm has advantages because many other allied nations use 9mm. So lots of interchangeable ammo. You can have a larger magazine, which means you can put more lead down the field, which means you're more likely to hit a person. So there's a lot of advantages to the M9 or just 9mm in general that offsets the lack of power from getting rid of a 45 ACP setup. I don't want to say 9mm is bad. Like 45 ACP is bigger and better. But there's advantages to smaller rounds. All right? You can carry more of them. The ammunition is not as heavy. You can fire more of them without reloading. All of these things play a factor for like the theory for why the military adopts certain firearms and lets certain other firearms go by the wayside. I wonder if the geese would war with the drones. Oh, we need to train falcons to attack the drones. Oh, we bring back falconry. You send up your red-tailed hawk to go catch the drone. No, eagles. We need a fleet of bald eagles to attack the drones. I have a Savage 99. It uses 300 Savage. Sorry, funny recall to the earlier convo. WWE wrestling is more real than Amazon reviews on Chinese products. Yeah. Mr. Beast videos are more real than Amazon reviews on Chinese products. And that's been the big drama this week is people coming, someone's like, Mr. Beast videos are all fake. I'm like, didn't we already know that? And it's like, no, we didn't, I guess. A huge number of people thought all of Mr. Beast's videos were real because he says they were real. It's like, no, we don't script anything. Actually, he does. Not only does he script things, but like it's all rigged. So it's the WWE of YouTube content. And I can't stand his content personally, but there's people who like the Mr. Beast content. And then they were defending him like, he's doing good things for people. I'm like, I'm not going to knock him for that, but like his videos are really fake, Versus original YouTube was more stuff like this. Just like talking to the people, pontificating, making videos on whatever. Here's how to do this thing in my garage. That's original YouTube. On the dialect of cartridges, power versus magazine capacity. Don't run empty or put them down. I think I have an uncanny vibe from Mr. Beast as well, especially his YouTube thumbnails where he's like, he has this weird shit-eating grin all the time that just is really weird. He looks like an alien to me. I'm assuming they're eventually going to come out with signal scrambling gun to force FPV drones to land. That's a good idea. Interference, jam the signal. Shotguns, also good. No, we need drones that have little shotguns on them. It turns out his trans friend is a pedophile. No one saw that coming. So the Chris situation is interesting. A lot of people were like, I can't believe the transphobes that hate Chris. Chris left his wife and child to fulfill his sexual fetish. That's why people hate it. They don't really hate him for wanting to put on a dress. It's like, if that's what you want to do, you can be a dress-wearing guy, I guess. But it's like, no, I'm going to leave this life that I have that most men would kill to have to, like, play dress up and take hormones. It's a lot of contempt for that. It's like, dude, you are shirking your duty. You voluntarily took on a family. You, with your will, made a child. And you're going to destroy that and destroy their lives and betray that and leave them in the lurch and destroy the child's ability to have a father so that you can have your personal fulfillment. I think you were a baby boomer if you weren't like Gen Z. Shit. I can't imagine like a more detestable or selfish thing to do, which is like, I created these things that people want with my will, and I'm going to throw them away and hurt people because I need self-fulfillment. It's kind of like saying, like, I would think the same thing if someone's like, I had to leave my wife and child so that I could be a touring musician. It's like, no, you didn't. That's not a justifiable reason to do that. Or I have to leave my wife and child so I have time to write books. Sorry, you don't have time to write books. You, with your will, you exercised your will in creating a family. You then, therefore, have a responsibility to that will. You can say, hey, I don't have a duty to the U.S. government. I didn't willfully choose to have the U.S. government, right? I don't have a duty to my country because I didn't choose to be born here. But you did choose to have your family. So by any kind of libertine or libertarian ethics that makes sense to normal people, you have a duty to them. It's only in the far leftist mindset of Gnostic personal self-actualization is superior to seeing towards the fulfillment of duties which you yourself have taken on. That makes sense. That's why I say the freedom of the left is licensed to do whatever you want, right? I should be able to be trans if I want to. Okay, but what are the consequences of that? It's immoral to do that, certainly in your case, because you have a wife and child that you have responsibility to take care of and to raise in a proper way. That child needs a father. He needs to know what a father is. He needs a man to raise him, not a woman. Otherwise, we wouldn't have mothers and fathers. We would just have mothers. And we wouldn't have fathers. We would just replicate like Asari or something, you know? Both of them are important. Yeah. Or like mini manpad that auto-targets drones via AI. Now, that's a use case for AI. Searching, detecting. You could just detect the signal. I detect the signal of a drone. Fly towards it. Fire shrapnel. Blow up the drone. We'll have drones fighting drones. You know, finally something for our gamers to do in war. What can we do with this guy that has a BMI of 38? Have him fly the drones. This guy's really good at Counter-Strike. He's gonna own this shit. Something sinister about building up a wall of altruism so that you cannot be criticized. Very culty. The whole content creator pop cult defended him for the longest time. The altruism is not truly charitable. He does the charity for profit. It's not really charitable in any sense of the word, right? He does this so that people will watch his videos and he can make money. He doesn't do it just out of the goodness of his heart, or he wouldn't make a video about it. He would have to reluctantly accept when it came out that he had actually spent $1 million on something, right? If it didn't matter to his brand, he wouldn't do a videotape of it. Most people don't, right? Like if you give $50 to a charity, you don't make a video talking about how great you are for doing that. If you help your neighbor do something, you don't make a big video about how great you are for doing that. Neighbors help each other all the time. After this hurricane, I helped my neighbors helped me, everybody helped each other because we're human beings, that's what we do. We don't make videos about how great we are. It's like, guess what? We're showing up to cut down this neighbor's tree that got knocked over in the storm. Aren't we great? I just thought the money being thrown around was just off-putting, obnoxious. I agree. I agree with like what, I watched a video from one of his former employees, and PewDiePie had this thing. It's like, you're just buying subscribers with this contest crap. It's like, this should be illegal. I sometimes go through my favorites playlist. Man, YouTube really has changed. It's amazing to see the 2007, 2008 stuff. Yeah. Seen some talk that other people close to Mr. Beast and his production are involved in other sus stuff regarding kids. And his game show stuff was likely illegal. Yeah, I've seen that as well. I don't know if the video's been taken down. I'll find the video real quick. You guys can watch it. I'm sure it's been all over YouTube. But I'm going to see if I can find it for y'all. I'm not going to do like a big reaction to it. You can just watch that video. I don't have that much to say because I'm not a Mr. Beast fan. And I gotta watch this video. I gotta watch Jackson Pollock talking about Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. Oh man, we gotta watch this video, guys. Save to watch later. We are definitely watching Jackson Crawford talk about Neil Gaiman. It's probably in my history somewhere. I worked for Mr. Beast. He's a fraud. All right. I'll grab the link. It already has like, how many views does this have? It's already got 7 million views, so half of y'all probably already seen it, but I'll link it anyway. That was my old man in a nutshell. Since having my daughter with is the greatest gift responsibility a man could dream of. Yep. With my wife. I know a boomer who left her little kid for a music career that is still a failure, but she's trying. And it's not just boomers. Like you see, it's like, I wouldn't have gotten this Oscar if I hadn't aborted my child. It's like, that's a horrible thing to say. That's horrific. Think about what other people are sitting there thinking. It's like, should I have killed my kid too? What are your thoughts on the latest Boogie stuff? Have you seen that? I haven't paid attention to him, but I heard he was lying about having cancer, which is pretty bad. But the cancer he was lying about having, I know, I have like my wife's cousin has that, and it's kind of blood cancer apparently. So it's a real thing, but I don't think he has it. A lot of leftists claim to read Marx, but they clearly take after Stern or more. Not that Marx didn't abandon his duties. So I don't think leftists really take after any socialist thinker other than a lot of them paying lip service to like Mao or Marx or whoever. I will have an article coming out on this in a couple of days on my Substack, so make sure you're on my Substack. I'm going to link the AI article again. But I have one, I don't like to just spam like 10 articles a day or anything. But the American Democratic Party does not have a coherent political philosophy, whether that's Marxism or not. The way that they win elections is by coalition building. They just have a collection of special interests, and that's the positions they rep. So welfare might be one of them, but they're not really Marxist in that sense. They'll say Marxist things to people who want to hear Marxist things, but that's about it. They're pro-welfare because that's how you get the black vote, right? They are pro-abortion because that's how you get the woman vote. They are pro-immigration because that's how you get the immigrant vote, right? So everything that they're for, it's just to get an ethnic group to vote for them. It's just a collection of positions, of single-issue positions to get voters. Whereas they used to be populist. Back in like the year 2000, both parties were populist. That's the race to the middle that happened in every presidential election was, what's the most popular set of positions that we can take? And to try to get the middle voters who aren't going to be committed. Because Republicans are going to vote for George Bush no matter what. Democrats are going to vote for Al Gore no matter what. But there's some people who just aren't motivated to vote. We motivate them to vote for one side or the other by talking about popular issues. So George Bush was a populist. So was Al Gore. So was Bill Clinton. And that's why when you look at Bill Clinton, he's like, well, he's more conservative than Obama. He was just taking whatever was the most popular position. Obama was against gay marriage until it became a popular position, in which case he was for it. But actually what happened around Obama's time was that lots of people believed in gay marriage as their single issue thing. So you could capture every gay person by saying you're for gay marriage. And you'll lose every gay person by saying you're against gay marriage. It's all just a bunch of special interests once you get to Obama and onward. Anyway, so yeah, I don't think Marx really influences the modern left all that much. I think it's more just a collection of special interests and special positions. The gay vote, the trans vote, the women on psychotropic drugs vote, the men on hormones vote, the black vote, the Latino vote, the illegal immigrant vote, like whatever the vote is going to be. You just pick positions that will get them to motivate them to go vote for you. Or to at least like hand their mail-in ballot over to a Democratic operative who will go mail it for them. You guys know how this works, right? Anyway. I know a boomer who left her little kid. Yes. What are your thoughts on the latest boogie stuff? Read that. A lot of leftists. Okay. There we go. I personally don't get the baby boomer hate. It seems hypocritical. It's because maybe you didn't grow up with baby boomers, or you're not able to look at the data. So the large-scale data says that baby boomers are aggregate the most sociopathic generation that's ever lived. They're the worst they've made the worst political decisions in the history of the United States. The data backs that up. They have sold the futures of their children and basically raped the savings of their elders. That is fact. You can read that in a book called A Generation of Sociopaths. I did a review on it, and I've done a video on it, and I've done a Substack review on it. Are all baby boomers that way? No. And in fact, most baby boomers are not sociopaths. But the baby boomers, for whatever reason, maybe they ate lead paint, maybe there was too much lead in the fuel, whatever. They have a higher than average amount of sociopaths and psychopaths. You can even see a curve of serial killers. The curve is just baby boomers becoming adults and then getting old. That's the curve of serial killers. Why did serial killers peak? Because that was peak baby boomers. That's when baby boomers were physically able to go be serial killers. Does that mean all baby boomers are serial killers? No. just a small increase in the number of sociopaths produces system-wide effects that are massive, right? We have a generation of kids that weren't raised by their parents, that were raised by TV, who spent all day in school. We have a gigantic national debt because of the way baby boomers have interacted with politics. We had lots of serial killers because just a few more sociopaths like nuked the system. Not for serial killers, but it just produced more serial killers. Those are tail end events. So we had big tail end events from baby boomers, and then we had systemic events because of just a little bit worse, right? Most baby boomers are good, right? And I could do a video on the good baby boomers, and there's good things about the aggregate of the baby boomers as well, and some of the individuals that the baby boomer generation has produced. There's nothing hypocritical about it, right? It's like saying, would we not also want to retire, sell a house, and die? I'm not going to sell my house. I want to give something to my children. I don't get to retire because I can't. I'm not a baby boomer. So saying, well, wouldn't it be nice for them to retire? I don't hate them for wanting to retire, but it's at what cost? It's that they view like, well, I'll sell everything I have and give nothing to the next generation. I don't want that. I want to set my children up. My mom's not like that, by the way. My mom is awesome. My dad was awesome. All the baby boomers in my life are pretty awesome. Most are actually good. But it is that slightly higher amount of like sociopathic people. Everybody's got a boomer anecdote. Boomer inherited my grandma's house. He sold it. He chopped down the trees, and because he didn't like them, chopped down the 100-year-old oak that my grandparents got married under because he just didn't like it. Thought it was time to move on. Threw this thing away. Sold my car that my grandpa left for me, Kept the money, went to Vegas with the money and spent it. Whatever. Albert says, I think the main source of hate is that with the baby boomers is kicking the ladder out from behind them. They sacrificed their children's futures for their own success. Yeah, they took out a loan with the national debt. They took out loan for consumption in the present that their children would have to pay down. Then they shirk responsibility like, I didn't do that. The politicians did that. We voted for them. Right? Politicians changed their policies in accordance with boomer wants starting in the 70s, including getting rid of the draft. Boomers didn't want to get drafted to go fight in Vietnam, even though most people who fought in Vietnam, the overwhelming majority were volunteers. And that's been true of every war. It's a volunteer army. But the point of the draft is like the people who aren't going to volunteer, there's still a chance they have some skin in the game. You have to care about what's going on. Maybe I'm not versed on what really sets them apart from us. Seems like they just are of their environment and opportunity. That's not... The fact that they're of their environment and opportunity is just one thing. It's not... If you don't believe in free will, then it's wrong to say anybody's bad. Yes, they started with something and they're ending with something, but they've had free will all the way through it to change what they're doing. And in aggregate, they haven't. They've gotten worse as time has gone on, That's why Republicans supported Medicare Part D, even though they were anti-welfare when the baby boomers were 30, because the baby boomers didn't want to pay for welfare. When the baby boomers were like, I would like welfare, it's like, yes, now Republicans are for welfare because they're populist. They just do what's popular, and whatever baby boomers want, that's what's popular because they're the biggest population. They're the biggest generation. It's not that hard, but that's the reality that we live in. I don't hate baby boomers for where they started, but you judge them based on what they do, right? This is why I'm always like, hey, Gen Y, you guys got to grow up, okay? Yes, you weren't parented. Things suck now. Things were better in the 80s and the 90s. What are you going to do about it now? I wrote a whole freaking book. No one is as hard on my generation as I am. Okay, I wrote a whole book on why Gen Y needs to grow up and be better and needs to leave things behind and look to the future. If people don't do that, that's their fault. And maybe that'll be a bad, negative judgment on my generation, is like they were the eternal children who collected Funko Pops and didn't have children. That's valid. Somewhere along the way, you have to exercise your will. My peers that I know have exercised their will. A lot of us have had kids. We couldn't have kids until our 30s because it wasn't financially viable. So many people I know, it's like, why'd you wait to have kids? It's like we were completely broke until like 2015. We were just broke. There was no way to make money. The economy was shit, and it's still shit, but we had enough money to have children after 2015. After working for 10 years of our life, we had enough money for a down payment on a house. Whereas the baby boomers bought houses when they were like 23 if they wanted to. No big deal. So the economy was just so much more permissive for like the raising of children for baby boomers. They had it better. I don't hate them for having it better. It's just, what did they do with that? You know, is Gen Y bad for not having kids earlier? Maybe they should have like buckled down and worked harder in their 20s. That's a totally valid criticism. I should have made more money in my 20s, but my career as a musician got completely obliterated from space due to Obama's economy in 2008, and then which made it so I had 0 gigs. I went from gigging 4 nights a week to not gigging. Kind of hard when your profession's a musician to make money when every restaurant closes down and every club closes down because there's no money to be made. Same thing with COVID. Like, can you say a musician's bad for like having no money after COVID? Every venue closed down. How the hell are you going to pay your rent? Your career got nuked from orbit. Same thing with my academic career, but that's a whole nother story. Yep. So anyway, you can read that book, Generation of Sociopaths. It goes into all the large-scale stuff. There's problems with it, but I talked about those in the article. Yeah. The next Armored Core game, Drones and Boss, National Olympic Skeet Shooter Champion. Yes. I love it. Coalition building and fraud. The fraud comes after it. I think they were really shocked in 2016 that a populist won. And then they started saying populism bad, even though they'd been populist always. They only recently changed their strategy to be a coalition of single issue voters and extremists. That's why they see it's why, and it's like, why do African Americans vote for Democrats when they're pro-immigration? Immigration hurts African Americans more than any other group. Most of them know it. Why? Well, because they don't feel like Republicans are for them, so they have to vote for Democrats. They feel like they have no choice. Same thing with every other group. You can be gay and know that like the Democrats are the worst economic party you could possibly vote for, but you end up voting for them because they're the party that says we're for your marriage rights. It's a single issue voter thing. I heard Zoomer males are turning out to be increasingly against gay marriage. I think Zoomers are in general. It's kind of weird, but I don't know how Zoomers are going to turn out. You know, I think that they'll turn out good, but they're still young, and we still have this extended period of youth thing in our culture where they're going to be just kind of 20-year-olds hanging out for a while still. Do you know what I mean? All right, I think it's almost time for me to go. I'm having massive allergies, and I'm sorry. The modern left is full of the Frankfurt School Hubert Marcuse. I'd have to look that up because I don't think I know what you're talking about. Sorry. Watch the Boomer video, yes. Check out the book. My mom keeps saying I need to buy a house. When I tell her about the housing market, her advice is just to get a better job. We live in Florida too, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. Let's get a better job. Yeah, that was like, I get boomer financial advice. It's like, you need to stop spending. It's like, I don't spend money on anything. You know, that's the person's like, well, just get a better job. It's like, what do you mean just get a better job? I can't just get a better job. I applied to 7,000 jobs last month and didn't get a call back except on 2. And then I didn't get the job because I'm white. What do you mean, get a better job? Just make more money. Aren't the current gens selling out the future even more? The national debt, the woke agenda, most welfare is going to the old. The Obamacare is a wealth transfer from the young to the old. You can look at most social programs. That's what influences the debt, and it's a transfer of wealth from the young to the old. Right. So the young are paying more and getting less. Should they do better? Probably. Yeah, they probably should do better, but we still have to be real that it's like the wealth transfers towards the old at this point. Yeah, boomers have a blind spot where they grew up and came of age in an age of unprecedented prosperity and it was all they knew. So they just assumed that no matter what, it would always be that way. And it's like kind of like talking to my grandpa. It's like you need to just like buckle down and like get a job, and they'll train you how to do the job. It's like it doesn't work that way anymore, right? The only way to get a raise is to find a different job. It's all a gig economy, you know. How do I get a raise at work? You don't. You find a different job. That's how you get a raise. That's our economy now. You point out the consequences of the policies they voted for. Both sides are equally bad. No politics, la la la. Yes, but you influence the internal party politics with what you want too. There might be a period of defenestration towards the baby boomers. I think we're running out of time to hold the baby boomers accountable. That was why Garner wrote the Sociopaths book. But the truth is, as long as it's the biggest voting bloc, we can't, in a democratic, peaceful system, hold them accountable. It's not going to be possible. What are you going to do? Seize their wealth after they die? Well, that just harms the next generation even more. You know? His solutions are always statist, which I don't agree with. But if you want to work up a boomercom, mention how the great Reagan granted the largest amnesty in American history, followed by another under his immediate successor, George H.W. Bush. Yes, why did they do that? It wasn't to capture the immigrant vote. It was to provide cheap labor. Because at that point, baby boomers were exiting the entry-level labor class and were entering the capital class, which meant they could benefit from poor labor and they themselves would not be paid poorly. Therefore, immigrants are a benefit. Therefore, we want as many illegal immigrants as you can have. As long as they're illegal and can't collect benefits, it's even better. You know what I'm saying? Mad Uncle Marty needs his gender fluid Hulk limited edition Funko Pop. Yeah, what's going to happen to us when in 2050? That's what Mad Uncle Marty's about. Is like, you know, are you going to grow up and be an adult? And then who's going to take care of all these childless millennials? Right? It's like some childless millennial relative. My children have to take care of him. You know? It's like their nieces and nephews have to figure out how to care for them. And are they going to want to? It's like you spent all your time and money on plastic garbage. You didn't know us, you didn't help us, right? Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to help you? It has to be like the Gen Alphas and lower, they're going to have a huge amount of charity for their elders when Gen Y gets to be really old. Because there's going to be so many childless people. It's like, what do you do with them? You can't love them for them being good. You can only love them for like God's sake, for the sake of Christ's love for them, because they don't deserve it. And it's the same thing with boomers. I love boomers. I'm going to take care of every boomer in my life as absolutely as good as I can, because the old people in my life are good, and I love them. Their commitment to keep Social Security going despite the damage it's doing is amazing. It's not amazing to me. It makes sense. And they'll tell you, you know, I contributed that money. That's my money. I deserve it. Because they take it at face value. Whereas the younger people are like, we know that it's just a tax and I'm never getting that money. So I would prefer for Social Security to go away, so at least I have slightly more money today to do something with. Then maybe I could own a piece of property with my slightly more money. And yes, it wouldn't be fair to baby boomers to not give them any benefits when they paid into benefits. But when we're looking at the numbers, they basically set it up so they didn't have to pay other people's benefits as much as they're going to receive benefits. It's true. Yeah, people employ AI in the application process. Another reason why AI makes everything worse. I realize I won't get a raise teaching, but they're instituting quarterly bonuses. That's cool. I actually made a lot of money compared to a lot of my peers teaching by collecting different bonus things. There was like this, I got extra money for this bonus program from the government, and I got extra money from this, and I got a grant for this, and I got this extra stipend because I was a band director. And so it ended up adding up to be like quite a bit of money. And you're like, how did you make all that money teaching? It's like, you just fill out this paperwork, baby, and you get money. There's going to be a point where people are going to talk more seriously about cutting taxes because people want to sincerely invest themselves in need rather than special interests and agendas. Yeah, the question of taxes is always like, what are you doing with them? And it's really hard to look at that. It's really hard to know what the solution is. Because there's some things that we want to pay for with taxes. Most people want to pay for with taxes, but people don't like to pay taxes themselves. It's scary. Most of my friends I grew up with don't have kids. Yeah, it is scary. It's actually going to be really scary in 2050. It's going to be really scary. I think Europe deals with it partially because their baby boomers had less children. Had fewer children, I should say, than American baby boomers. So they might be a few years ahead. Catholic families will do well in the future. It encourages me. Yes. Christian, pro-family, I think Mormons will be fine. I think Catholics will be okay. Orthodox Christians will be okay. And just any religious family that views the production and education of children as the primary purpose of the family is going to be fine. Because you will have that community of people that care about you. There's going to be so many childless millennials. I don't know what we're going to do with them. Who's going to pay for them? Who's going to put them in the old folks' home? What are you going to do with them? It's going to be bad for them, you know. I'll hit my senior years in the 2040s. I don't want to be around to see America by 2050. We're going to have some challenges, and we need to think now about how to meet those challenges, right? Like, we're going to have government nursing homes for people without families. And we're going to have to figure out how to fund that. Or just have, like, massive church charities to take care of the old again. Right? We're going to have a lot of big families with a lot of really dedicated people to take care of old people that didn't have kids to care about them, you know? They don't have any family to rely on. It's going to be a major charity work. Yeah, my biggest regret with kids is that we didn't start earlier and have more. I wish I had found a way to just be more on top of making money, not been a musician, just done anything else that could have made some money. I'm just too, like, independent to follow normal paths, I guess. And so I could have more children earlier. That's my one regret. My one regret, you know. Actually, that's not true. I have many regrets. That's one of them. That's the big one. General wisdom, take care of those who genuinely care about you. Build your ark. Only bring the closest family pairs and pairs of animals. I think build your ark. Be charitable towards those who are going to invest in you. And community building is going to be a big challenge in the future. We're going to have to meet it. Apparently, George W. Bush suggested keeping Social Security but wanted to add an option for younger gens to opt out. It was shut down by the boomers. Didn't we start a revolution when the taxes were raised to 3%? Yeah, you hear things like that, but revolutions are, and including ours, were run by counter elites, not the people. So the people go along with it. Canada has a solution. It's called maids. Yeah, we just kill the childless millennials when they hit. When we get to 2050, we'll just start killing them. I would never say hopefully I'll be dead by then. You know, maybe I'll have hard times when I'm old, and I will just have to rely on God to see me through those hard times. That's all. Anyway, that's it for today. We've been going for 2 hours. It's time to cut it down. Time to shut it down. I really appreciate everybody watching, everybody hanging out with me, talking about all these different topics. I'm going to try to get more guests on the show. I'll be back to do more live writes on Saturday. Let me link the Patreon. You get a free book every month. And in fact, you actually get 3 free books this month. So it's pretty cool. And so the thing is, not everyone can have children. Sometimes it doesn't work out in life. That's not what this is about. It's about people electing to be childless, like for their own personal, like, selfishness. That's a little bit different than, like, hey, it never happened, I never found a wife. That's okay. Everybody has purpose even if you don't have children. And I would never want to say people are bad because they don't have children, or because maybe they know that they would be not a good parent, and that's okay too. So I don't want to, like, cast judgment on everybody's purposes, but I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot of millennials who are just choosing not to have children, and it's going to be interesting when they get older. That's all. You know, it'll be interesting. So, not trying to cast judgment on people who can't or feel like they need to not have children. That's Every individual case is different. But we're going to have a problem with the whole generation where we have so many childless people once we get to about 2050. So have a good one, and I'll see you all next time. I did link the Patreon, right? Okay. Yes, subscribe on Patreon. You get a free book every month, and you get copies of the live rights, all that stuff. That's all on Patreon. So have a great one, and I will see you all next time. And have a great, great day. Oh, I'll link the, let me link the music channel. All the live ambient music. I'm going to try to get to 100 of these before I close that cycle down. And then we'll do the next musical phase. But I really was like, man, I just want to be able to do all this stuff live and just see where I can take it and what I can do with it. And I think it's been it's been a really good experience and a lot of fun, even if there's not a lot of people watching. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And so the joy of creation is sometimes its own reward. And maybe it's going to have to be its own reward because there may not be a lot of money in this stuff in the future. So have a great one. See you all next time.